Boom, boom, welcome. And today we are going to be talking about the most common mistakes made by beginner property investors. Yeah, I know what I'm going to be talking about because I have done it myself. First-hand experience of doing all of these mistakes. And potentially, you are not even a beginner anymore. And you are also most welcome to listen to this because some of these mistakes, I made them way after I had passed the phase of being a beginner. But I like to call myself that I am always learning, and for that reason, I am always a beginner. Welcome. I'm going to give you around about 7 of these common mistakes, but chances are I'm going to go over and above 7. Let us start. So the first one that I want us to talk to is that I did this, by the way. Yes, I did this, and I was thinking that if I go into property, I had looked into the Forbes list, I had gone on to look at people around me, and I actually observed that many people that are in the property space, they are rich. Yes, and for that reason, I thought that I could jump in there in the property space, I can learn it, and I can get rich quickly. That's the common mistake there, thinking that you will be able to get rich quickly. Getting rich is not the issue here. It's about getting rich quickly. I want to define asset classes. There is many different types of asset classes. Some asset classes, or should I say when you're doing investments, you get what is called low investments, low risk. And you get some that are medium risk, you get some that are very high risk, high return, and you're able to lose your money there as well. You need to be aware of that. That's the game of investments, right? But if you are wanting to get rich quickly, then the investment of property will not get you there because it is not on this side of the fence, it is on this side of the fence where it is into the low to medium risk. Right. So for that reason, thinking you will get rich quickly, it's a common mistake. If you're to think like that, you're already putting your game of property investment at a back foot because now you're not going to get rich quickly. You're going to get frustrated. When you're getting frustrated, you're going to think that this thing is working, but the real challenge here is that the mechanism of what you're investing in, which is property, it's not designed to get you there quickly. The second part is that not having a strategy. I want to explain the fact that in property there is many strategies. What do I mean by strategies? There is many ways in which you can do property. So I'm going to explain a little bit of this, and as we go along, you will be able to see that that's a different strategy. So for instance, we all know the land. The land comes in barren with nothing on it. It might be a farming, so you could do farming. That's also a strategy. And from there, you can actually maybe take the land and then you can add a little bit of value, maybe put in a fence, maybe grade it, maybe, I don't know. And you can then be able, because now you have added value, then you can sell it. So you have actually done what is called a land flip. Or you can buy a dilapidated house and on there you can add value, make it pretty, and you can sell it. Or you can do what I call short-term rentals. You know, rent your property for a week, a month, maybe 2 months, and you're doing this on any of these platforms that are out there, the likes of the Airbnb, bookings.com. There are so many of them these days. And all of those are different strategies. Student accommodation, right? Some are, you can do the strategies as a mixed strategy. What do I mean by that? Maybe you have a long-term lease on your tenant, on your normal property or house or whatever it is, but you only do this from, let's say, January to October. So it's a long-term lease. But then the holiday seasons, you can then be able to do the short-term because it's giving you a little bit of a higher income. And that's a mixed strategy. So what I'm basically saying here is that as and when you are now going into the business of property investing, the most common mistake is that people actually don't have a strategy because they don't know of all of these things. I wrote a book that is called 10 Best Strategies That Work in South Africa, which you can be able to download. It's a free book, by the way, and you can be able to understand the 10 strategies that actually work in South Africa, and potentially they work in Africa as well. I have checked in with some of my other mates that are internationally based or investing in international, and they say to me, TJ, some of these are working in their market. So that book there can help you to understand the strategies, and you can now start to say, which one speaks to me as an individual, and above that, you can start learning that and then implement it. The third one is that not knowing how to negotiate. Ooh, yeah, you can hear the pains there, right? The bottom line about negotiating is that not all of us are born good negotiators, right? Not all of us, right? But the thing is that it's a learned behavior. It is a strategy that we can all learn. We have seen all these big negotiators in different movies and so on. They negotiate extreme intensive situations. They didn't get there like that. They got there by understanding what is negotiating. They started practicing it and started seeing what's working for them, and it became a tool as they went on. So if you don't know how to negotiate, well, you can learn how to negotiate. How can you learn? There's plenty of books. There is schools now that now teach how to do that. But hold on, you potentially are negotiating right now. If you're a parent, you're probably negotiating your way out as and when your child is asking you for stuff, and you're negotiating every single day. And if you're a man like me, you've been negotiating your way through to see someone who looks pretty. Even today, women, they also negotiate to hook up with a nice guy who might look like me. So we all negotiate, but we're just not utilizing the negotiations into the realms of property. So the other one that I want to speak to, which is also a most common mistake, is that not understanding numbers. This one here, it's a very important one, especially if you're going to be doing this for investment purposes. The whole idea of you jumping in to do an investment is that you are wanting to reap a reward. But now if you don't understand the numbers themselves, how best now do you reap the reward? So let's jump into understanding the numbers. Firstly, there is the scope of you buying the property. So what is the numbers that is required? There's a buying price, yep. And then there's an acquisition price, buying price, acquisition price. Kind of like sound the same thing, but let me explain it a little bit more. So the buying price is actually the price that you're going to pay for it. But then I just want to define today to say the acquisition price now is other costs associated in you buying that. So you bought this property for 500,000, but now you need an extra 50,000, and that's what I'm just labeling today as acquisition. You know, further costs that you need to be aware of. Then they comes through, now you've bought this property, it's in your name or whatever it is, but now you are wanting to add value into it. That's another piece of scope of work. So we said scope number one, and then this is scope number two. If you add these two together, and in the long run, you are going, are you making money? And that's what understanding numbers is all about. How do you get to do this? You can use Excel. I use Excel. Google Excel have been my very good friend for a very long time, and I use it. I've got a long spreadsheet. By the way, within that spreadsheet, I call it the deal calculator. If you are looking for that deal calculator, bingo, I can give it to you. All you need to do is in the comments, whenever you watch this video, let me know whether this will be helpful to you. Deal calculator. And basically, I have put in everything that I need to look at a property. And when I see a property, I then use my deal calculator as a point of reference. and then I include certain things and I exclude certain things, and my deal calculator becomes my template. It tells me what I'm supposed to add in and what I'm not supposed to. Instead of doing this on a napkin or on a piece of paper somewhere where you might not remember some key things. By the way, a deal calculator also helps me to navigate deals faster because now I have that guideline. So I know that Excel might not come as natural for some other people, but again, learn how it's done. I know that doing the formulas in the Excel might not come natural. Again, learn how to do it, right? So you might be thinking that you are jumping into this property and business and so on, but these are some of the most common mistakes that people do. They jump into it and not understanding these things or not knowing that these things need to be done. By the way, what has been your common mistake that I haven't covered in here that you can give me in the comments? Right. Point number 5 is focusing on one area. I've seen even schools that say you need to focus on an area when you're doing these deals and so on, things like that. I think it's a common mistake because you might want to go in there. I'm not saying you should focus on plenty areas, but at least focus on 2 or 3. And with that, you can start to see what works in one area, what's working in another area, what can you copy in one area, plant in another area. You can start to make a quick money. But focusing on a particular area, it's got a lot of limiting aspect into it because now you're focused on that area. And let's assume this area has been oversaturated with student accommodation. There's big players in there. And now you're coming in as a newbie, as an investor, or potentially you're a seasoned investor, but you're coming into this new strategy. And with that, you are not able to execute it because it's oversaturated. What do you do in that instance? I would take my learnings from those other big players and I would go into another city and I would start implementing the same thing. Or potentially even hire someone else who's doing that in that area that is oversaturated and say to them, I'm going to go into another area. Would you like to partner up with me? Teach me how it's done. How have you done it here so that it can be a copy and paste from one city to the next city and you're busy making money. Next point is that condition of the property. I want to split condition of property. As and when you're buying a property, you need to put in conditions. If I'm buying this property, my condition is X. I'm going to share with you a quick story. I bought a property at one point and there were people from France, or they were French-speaking people staying in this property, and I didn't put a condition that they need to move out. I need the building empty. It was a small block of flats of around about 12 units. And these people here stayed on the property. And eventually when I approached them to say, hey, I am your new landlord. Well, they sized me up and they said, a skinny guy like you? No. And by the way, we had a language barrier. And for that reason, I tried to use Google Translate to write my letter and introduce myself. That didn't work. They even took me to a rent tribunal asking the law so that I can be able to honestly be able to define who I was. I could have avoided that by actually engaging with the previous seller, with the previous owner and Mr. Seller, and made it a condition that he needs to introduce to me and I needed to know these people, and that is part of the sale. But I didn't do that, and it was a mistake that I did. And I say that is a common mistake. There's plenty of them. But speaking again of the condition, I want to speak of another condition. The condition of the property itself. The property, what does it look like? Here is the problem. As a beginner, there's lots of things that you don't know. You might look at a crack and you might not even see it, and it might be plastered a little bit, but you don't see it, right? Because your eyes are not trained to see such kind of things. But there is professionals that are called home inspectors or property inspectors. They can come through and they can do a thorough viewing, due diligence on your property. They'll go into the ceiling. They will check everything and they'll give you a report on what is wrong on a property. And with that, you can be able to make an informed decision or even use the same to negotiate. We spoke about earlier on how to negotiate. Now you've got another tool that you can utilize to negotiate. So having to understand the condition of the property is very important, because it's not just the conditions that you can put in to say, I'm buying this because of the condition, but understanding the conditions of the property. Because if you don't, let's assume there's a leak on the property and you didn't see it, you bought the property in winter, summer comes through, bingo, it starts raining. Who's going to foot the bill? The final one that I'm going to give you, hey, by the way, if this information has been great to you and you're seeing some value in it, hit the like button. Yep, so that we can reach more people, and I'll appreciate that too. But also don't forget to subscribe. Actually, our stats tells us that 1 in 4 of you that are watching this video, I'm hoping that you're not the 4th person, is not subscribed to this channel, and yet you coming back to enjoy the information. Hit the subscription button. Learn more. And besides learning more, you will help us to reach many people. The last one that I'm going to give you is that thinking that you are Superman, yeah, or Superwoman, yeah, you can do everything by yourself. I want to reinforce that the business of doing property is not a one-man band property. It's not like golf. It's not like tennis, you know. It is like rugby, soccer, football, right? Look at the property as a ball. When you buy the property, you need to pass it on to the conveyance. And when you've done that, you need to pass it on to the home inspector. And when you're done with that, pass it on to the builder. When you pass it on to someone else who's going to sell your property. These people, all of these people, they are professionals. And for that reason, you are covered by the regulators. You are covered by policies and so on, that if anything goes wrong, you can be able to claim. Now, if you're doing all of these things, by the way, I've done this. Yes. In the beginning, I would literally go and buy a 2-bed, 1-bath, and I would say, I'm going to do the tiling. I'm going to be the plumber, I'm going to do the painter, and I will do all of these on my own. Well, and I'll even sell it myself because I want to save a little bit of commission. The bottom line is that when you're giving it to an estate agent to sell the property for you, they've got a long list like this. People that are wanting to sell. And by the way, they've been trained to sell. You haven't been trained. So that's it for today in terms of most common mistakes made by beginners, property investors. And I'm hoping that you can be able to avoid this. But before you go, I want to hear from you as well. What are some of your common mistakes that I haven't explained here that you think you have done in your game when you are starting up? Wherever you are in your journey right now, hey, this is the channel about sharing all the mistakes so that the next generation don't have the same issues. My name is TJ. We will check you out on the next video.